Who puts going to North Korea on their bucket list? America's top spy. That's who, and that's just one of the things we found out Friday when James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence, invited us to his office to talk about his top secret trip there to bring home two American prisoners, Kenneth Bay and Matthew Miller. Why do you suppose they chose the top spy in the United States?
Well, that's a great question. For one, they wanted someone who was currently in the government, who was part of the National Security Council. And I think I've kind of followed the Korean Peninsula ever since I served there as a Director of Intelligence for U.S. Forces Korea in the mid-'80s.
Had you ever been to North Korea?
Well, this is the first time I flew over North Korea with permission. I was on a helicopter when I served in Korea in December 1985 that strayed into North Korea, obviously without their permission, and they shot at us, and fortunately we made it back to the south. So my line is the first time I went in with permission.
Let me talk about when that United States aircraft, it was a transport plane, set down in the North Korean capital. What went through your mind? Were you apprehensive?
Yes, I was quite apprehensive because we weren't sure how this was going to play out. I personally was not completely confident that they would actually release our two citizens. And so, yes, it was apprehensive. And from a personal standpoint, it's kind of always been on my professional bucket list, to visit North Korea, and so I did get to do that.
Paint the scene for me. What did it look like? You said it was nighttime.
It's dark anyway in in North Korea. I think it's a famous picture, overhead shot of contrasting the two parts of the peninsula at night, with North Korea being quite dark and South Korea being all lit up. And so that image, I think, was kind of sustained, but it was over just a very dark appearance. And so we went immediately off the plane and into a limo that took two or three vehicle convoy that took us to the state guest house downtown Pyongyang.
And what happened then? And who greeted you?
A small greeting party that was headed by the Minister of State Security, and of course a translator.
And what did they talk about?
I made the point that, and I was very interested in recovering our two citizens. I think they were disappointed, frankly, that I didn't have some breakthrough.
Well, you did bring a letter from President Obama.
It generally was a pretty short letter, which basically identified me as the President's envoy, and characterizing their willingness to release our two citizens as a positive gesture.
Did you take any kind of a reply back to the President?
I think the major message from them was their disappointment that there wasn't some offer, or some big, again, the term they used was breakthrough. I did take a ray of optimism from a younger interlocutor who accompanied me on the way out to the airport. And I think it illustrates the potential here for the future, because I do think there's a generational difference between the older part of the regime, by say older, my generation.
Our generation.
Yes, who are kind of stuck on their narrative. And whereas I think there is I saw a difference generationally in this 40-something interlocutor who I think professed interest in more dialogue, asked me if I'd be willing to come back to Pyongyang, which I certainly would.
Let's go back to, so you got there, you were taken to the hotel. Was there a dinner or something like that?
Yes, I was hosted by the head of what's called the Reconnaissance Guidance Bureau, which is their and kind of a combination intelligence and special operations force.
What was the tone of the dinner?
It was pretty terse. I think, at least it reinforced for me something I've always think I understood about North Korea as a country that feels itself to be under siege. There's a certain institutional paranoia, and that was certainly reflected in a lot of things that he said, for example, allegations about our exercises that we conduct in the Republic of Korea. He did bring up the human rights issue at one point, although we were well into the dialogue, criticizing us for our interventionist approach, our interventionist policies in their internal matters. So it was that sort of dialogue back and forth. It wasn't exactly a pleasant dinner.
When did you finally find out that they were going to release these people?
We spent the rest of the day waiting after for quite some time and until late afternoon, and then the MSS representative came by the state guest house, said you have 20 minutes to pick up your luggage, we're leaving. Check out, and then we were taken to the Koryo Hotel downtown and were ushered into a room in which the amnesty granting ceremony, I guess I'd call it, was conducted.
But they hadn't, up until that point, actually told you they were going to release them.
Right. Well, until we were moving and went to the hotel, then, and then during this amnesty granting ceremony, and afterwards he turned to me and said he hoped we would have more dialogue, but not about detainees. We shook hands. I said, thank you. We walked out. Our two detainees changed clothes, and we went out to Sunan Airport and got on the aircraft and flew.
Do you think this has changed anything?
That's a good question. I think that remains to be seen as to where do we go from here? Will this perhaps serve as a catalyst or stimulus for more dialogue? I hope so, but I don't know.
Director, how would you rate North Korea on the scale of dangerous places in the world? Is it the most dangerous in your view?
Well, that's these days. That's it's hard to rank. There's lots of danger spots around the world. In my half century or so in intelligence, I don't know a time when we've been beset by a greater array, a more diverse array of challenges and crises than we are today. So, yes, North Korea potentially is a danger spot, but so there are others.
You mentioned different danger points in the world. I wonder, could I get your take on what's happening now in Iraq and Syria, where we hear of this alliance between Al-Qaeda in Syria and ISIS? Do you?
Well, I think I don't see that. We don't see that, basically because of the countervailing competing objectives. And I think what you're specifically referring to is al-Nusra.
Yes.
Which is the Al-Qaeda chapter franchise in Syria, and ISIS. And because of their competing objectives and who would have to be subordinate to the other, really don't see that at the strategic level. There have been tactical accommodations on the battlefield on occasion where local groups have united in the interest of a tactical objective, but broadly, I don't see those two uniting, at least yet.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.